Any other comments or questions on the ballot language? Okay, Commissioner Roach, you sent us some proposed language yesterday or this morning.
Yeah.
We got hard copies. You want to go over that?
I don't usually endeavor exercises in futility, but I will on this. I too am proud that out of 363 metro areas in the country, our metro area ranks 16th and fastest growing right now without a rep. So we are very competitive. I'm proud that we are still competitive and do not need this to be competitive. It's not an affront to it, it's just a statement of fact. That came out yesterday, by the way. I have a lot of concerns with it. I'd like to talk about because I think this is an extremely important endeavor. This is extremely huge for this county. And I'm calmed by the fact that we actually are many months ahead of when this actually has a deadline on it. So the sense of urgency that's been created to do this today or within the next month, I think it's good that we could take a breath and realize that we do not have to do this today, and it does not have to be done within the next month. We have until August of 2014 to hash out a lot of questions that have yet to be answered for my comfort level. I don't think that prevents this from going forward. I think that everybody can see that. But I have a lot of concerns with, number one, some of the languages in it. Number one, the use of Green Light Pinellas. Green Light Pinellas is not the plan. Green Light Pinellas was a brand name that a consultant was paid to come up with. The plan is the alternative analysis, the entire financial structure that this has been put together on comes from the alternative analysis. That plan does not include the bikes or the walking trails that are in the Green Light Pinellas logo. So I'm going to base all this, comes from a couple very key points. Number one is the gentleman who stood before us at our last meeting, I think you referenced it earlier, about wasn't sure whether he was for or against it, but wanted us to be very clear on the ballot language, and so that citizens know exactly what it is we're doing, that yes doesn't mean no, and voting for this doesn't mean that, and that sort of thing. And one of my biggest concerns, and I've aired it to BSDA in here, is the lack of a plan B. But starting with that, with respect to what seems to be, at least that I'm gauging here, option 3 language here, the concern is the Green Light Pinellas plan. And again, Green Light Pinellas isn't a plan, it's a branding name. It's what we've been selling as the branding name. But that's not really the plan. The plan is the alternative analysis, and I have concerns with us spending $500,000 to market the brand of Green Light Pinellas and then trying to put it on a ballot to pass it as the plan. Dollars and cents in this entire project and this entire 1 cent initiative comes from the alternative analysis, and that was a $4 million plan that was created, done, and approved, and accepted as quote B plan. So that's number one. The second issue, if you look at the ideas I give you here, or have put out here, the second issue is the use, and this again goes back towards the gentleman's comment about being very clear on what it is. And that is the words and the semantics played here on how we're sort of conflating the word 1 cent and 1% here in this, because in earnest, what we are not doing is levying a 1% sales tax as if it is a standalone. People will not buy something in the county and on their receipt see 7-cent sales tax and a standalone 1 cent. In earnest, this is an addition to the existing sales tax that we have. And if we use the word percent in that context, it is a 14.28% increase in the existing sales tax, not a standalone separate 1%. To use the 1, you have to go to 1 cent, and that's 1 cent added to the existing 7-cent sales tax. So that is the word conflation there that is concerning to me. This would imply that we are just the only thing we have. The only tax we have, it's a standalone. The word addition should be in there, but if you go to addition, then you have to address the percentage versus cent issue, and that's my concerns there, which is why I kind of added some of this in there. The second idea in some of this was to simply scratch and this would make it really simpler in the language, in my opinion, is scratch the reference to the green light plan, which is what we have been marketing for a year on, and simply make it a transit plan. Because the green light, this is alternative analysis, this and this and this. It's not the green light. The green light logo and the dollar structure that is in this plan is predicated on the alternative analysis. And the alternative analysis did not include lights and walking trails and all that. So that's important. Plus that just opens it up for growth and potential, and it doesn't lock us into one thing if you're going to do it. Now, the problem also for me is the constant reference to regional. This is, I do not want to encumber Pinellas County taxpayers to fund regional systems. And in the language of the actual ordinance, it's even specifically the Charter County and Regional Transportation System surtax. It doesn't even mention connectors in the title of that, but in the other language it's mentioning connectors. If Pinellas does this and Hillsborough does this, and then at some point we want the two communities to get together and decide who will fund and how they will fund the connectors, that's one thing. But to encumber us for the regional connection funding of that, when a regional system doesn't even exist, I think is problematic for that. So, and I believe every bit of this should be predicated on the successful repeal of the existing PSTA tax. That is key to me. We are, in effect, doing dual taxation if this passes, because you still have an interlocal agreement, the existing and the VOCC at all, you've got it existing. And in our finance subcommittee, we were talking about that on how, well, if PSTA decides at some point in the future to re-collect or re-up the tax, well then we'll agree to just give it to the county. Well, what does that mean? Other than we get more money to give back to them. So I think that's very clear on this, and that was kind of why I referenced it earlier in the legislative delegation. So what I look for is the first one. I've got several options here, quite frankly, that address some of the things we've been talking about already. You see the marked up version, which I think if you go to the clean version makes it far clearer that we will levy an additional 14.28% sales surtax to fund countywide and regional public transit plans. I'd love to scratch regional out of there completely. And then upon successful legislative repeal of the existing PSD ad valorem, shall Pinellas County levy that additional 14.2% sales tax starting, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, the associated fors and against. Option, the second or the alternative option is on the second page that I'd like to enter for consideration. Does that in the same way. Basically, this goes to the cent issue as opposed to the percent issue, and it's levy an additional 1 cent to the existing countywide surtax of 7 cents to fund, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, the summary upon successful repeal of the existing PSTA ad valorem, and then the associated so far. If you go to county attorney's chart or issues here under number 2, you'll see the ordinance provides that defining capacity of rails is not untimely and what have you. And this goes to Commissioner Seal's concept and the theory and discussion on do we want to be in a position to reduce? Well, all that applies absolutely as well in reverse, which says we don't necessarily have to set it at the high and seek to reduce. We can set it at the low and seek to increase. So that's what this option 2, which quite frankly option 2 here and the option 3 are my two most preferred, option 3 the most preferred, and that would be to levy an additional ½ cent to the existing countywide surtax for the funding of the existing and expanded countywide transit. Period, right there, and it allows the flexibility to go there, and should in fact the federal funding come through, and should in fact that all be solidified first, then you go to the language. Upon successful legislative repeal of an existing PSD ad valorem, shall the county levy the additional ½ cents to the existing until repealed or increased by the county ordinance to operate, maintain, and finance the bus transit system throughout Pinellas County. And that's the fourth. So it's that same theory of if we're comfortable with the concept of being able to repeal or reduce, we should also be comfortable with repeal or increase after we have in fact answered all the questions and the funding has been assured and all that sort of stuff. I mean this with all due respect, but if we've learned anything from the recent Affordable Health Care Act and the Bigger Waters Act, is we need to have questions answered. And we need to read, and we need to make sure these things are done before we vote on certain things as to our citizens. Now, my biggest concerns I brought through to PSTA. And I've talked about here in terms of the taxing authority. I questioned a little bit about that. Is that we do have a third option. And the third option is to leave the legislative, when I go down the third option here, I think the third option to all this, in terms of us getting involved in this to begin with, and that's leave PSTA's taxing authority in place. Encourage them to keep in control of their taxing authority, retain it, and then encourage them in an effort, and you guys know this because you're on PSTA, to increase their current levy to at least the existing 0.75 mil, and then encourage them to, and support them in their efforts to increase it through proper legislation to a cap of not to exceed 1 mil or 2 or whatever it is, for them to endeavor and take full responsibility and bonding capability for this endeavor, which, as we're all accepting, is there. If we're going to accept this as the taxing authority, then council is absolutely correct, and every bit of piece that we've discussed on taking out of here, we absolutely should not take out of here, because we are the liable taxing authority here. We are the rated ones. We are the ones who will be giving this money away, and we should approve any bonding issues because we are the ones taxing authority and liable for that. We should not remove any of that from here if we're going to go forward as the taxing authority. This removes that authority out of PSTA's hands and places it in us, and it would be irresponsible for us to say, we'll just collect the money and be liable for it, and just give it to you, do what you want. That's simplifying it, but that's totally outside of our ability, really, in my opinion. So I have that concern. Now, the overriding concern for me, quite frankly, I brought this up, is there is no plan B. There's no plan B in this entire thing. I brought this up to our PSTA, I brought it up here before. Plan B is no new revenue source, which in effect is no plan B. We've been spending the revenues on PSTA. I know we're sitting in different roles here. Down, we're going to spend it right down to to fund this PSTA operation and spend it right down to this ad valorem tax. And if this tax doesn't pass, crash the system by 28%. That's been reported, that's out there. This isn't out of class. We all know that. They've talked about it. They've said that's what we're going to have to do if we don't get this. And I mean this with the utmost of respect of my colleagues sitting here at this board who are a layer longer than me, and on PSTA. That's extremely irresponsible for us to go forward on that mode. For our vote, with our care, and all the speeches on how much we care about transportation and expanding it in this county, for our plan B to be, if we don't get it all, crash the system by 28%. Think, the legacy is, think about that. We have no plan B here. What are we going to do if this money doesn't come, if this doesn't pass? That's the plan B issue I've been talking about. There is none. And that to me is crazy. I can't, as a person elected to sit here and fiscal and fiduciary responsibility, move forward with a plan that says if I don't get it all, I'm crashing the system by 28% to purpose. That's concerning.
Commissioner, let me ask you to come back to the ballot language so we
Okay. All right, I just want to give you the overall guidance on this. Hopefully, down the road, we can have this. This isn't something that has to be decided today. But coming down the road, when this comes down by August, these are issues that I'm going to be talking about as my independently elected, independently accountable seat sitting here as a representative of citizens in this county. With this going fiduciary. Okay, now I've dispatched, you guys may or may not know, a letter to our, this is the other thing that concerns me. I'm putting them all out here because this is going to be discussed going forward.
Well, I want to just try to bring the ballot language in because we've got other items and then we've got 6 o'clock public hearing. So if you can speak to your ballot language, we can get a motion.
Well, those are, yeah, I really think that we should consider option 2. I'd be happy to answer any questions or have some debate on what this calls for, or keep in mind that it's option 3 of us staying out of this and allowing PSTA to do its job as it is legislatively created to do. Is still an option 2. So are there any, does anybody have any questions on the language that I've presented here? Is there anything you disagree with or anything you don't understand?
Well, I have some responses. I would have